Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Package Tourist, hosted by yours truly, The Package Tourist, and the magical mystery tour called Life, Matthew DiBiase. Tonight, we have a special guest, pro football historian and author Terence T.J. Troup. TJ is one of the foremost historians of professional football. He has written numerous articles for American Football Coaches Monthly and was the football coordinator/consultant for the 2008 George Clooney film Leatherheads and also the 2021 film 12 Mighty Orphans. He wrote his first book in 2009 titled This Day in Football. In 2014, he wrote The Birth of Football's Modern 4-3 Defense, and this year, Coach Troup released 1961, a sensational season, where he examines the offenses, defenses, special teams, stats, and significant games for all 14 NFL teams and also the Houston Oilers and San Diego Chargers in the AFL. Tonight, we will celebrate the 60th anniversary of the 1964 AFL Championship game between the Buffalo Bills and the San Diego Chargers. Coach, it's great to have you again. I'd like to start off by asking you, when examining the press, what were the football experts and the pundits and the press viewing this 1964 AFL Championship game? Who was favored? I mean, what was the prevailing view before the game started?
Well, that's an excellent question, Matthew, and let's back up to the publications that come out during the summer.
Okay.
And fortunately, I have three of them, and all of them basically say the same thing about the Chargers. They're the defending champions. They return a ton of talent. Everyone picks them to go to the title game and most likely win their second championship in a row.
Yeah.
But in the East, in Peterson's, it says Chargers to charge again. Then it says Boston and Houston in the East by 14 votes to 11. And then it states about Buffalo, Bills, rather an erratic club during most of 63, seem not to have added much additional manpower. Well, the guy who wrote that, I wonder how that crow tasted after the season.
Ouch.
Then in the guy who wrote that up, Steve Weller in the Buffalo Evening News, has the following: horrifying things happen to the Bills opening month, and we'll address that.
Yeah.
Then it says, Haygood Clark, can't miss category. And it says, veteran John Tracy was erratic last year. Willie West and Booker Edgerson held down the corner jobs last year. Young, reasonably quick, but small and vulnerable. And there's not even, well, we'll talk about the D-line. Then in the Almanac, it picks the Bills to come in first. It says the Bills are awful on pass defense, not because the backs were awful, but there's no pass rush. And then in Street and Smith's, it's written by Jack Gallagher. It says San Diego is the class of the West, and it says, and could take another playoff between Boston and Buffalo in the East. And we'll get to the cookie part. It says, but this is the greatest quote of all of them.
Yeah. Jack
Gallagher states, Buffalo's linebackers are suspect. I mean, nothing could have been further from the truth. And then it's the final thing when we talk about the secondary. It says the upstate New Yorkers were particularly embarrassed by the cornerback play of Willie West and Booker Edgerson.
Ouch.
So that stated, it looks like the Chargers got everything going their way. And as I stated so much more about Buffalo, and how does Buffalo start the 64 season after all those years where they start slow?
Yeah.
They win every week. Look at they were 8-0.
Yep. Beautiful.
So let's go to your questions and let's get after it.
Okay, let's talk about coaching staffs. Let's talk about Buffalo's coaching staff. Head coach Lou Saban and coordinators Joe Collier, John Mazur, and Jerry Smith.
Well, now just making that statement, there's only 4 men. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Saban coached, but obviously with his background, he can help a lot on the defense, and maybe he helped Collier by working with the linebackers.
Yep.
And also, I'm sure he spent time, because he sure enjoyed offense, spending time with Jack Kemp because there's no quarterback coach listed.
Right.
So I'm sure they spent time together.
Yep.
John Mazur was the receivers and the offensive backfield coach, and he joined them in '62. Everything I've read, he's knowledgeable. Doesn't say anything good, neither good nor bad.
Yep.
Jerry Smith also came with Saban in '62. He coaches both the offensive and defensive line. He has a long, very strong background and was an NFL player in the 50s with Green Bay and San Francisco. He knows the game. Excellent line coach. And finally, the man everybody knows in Buffalo history. He just, at times, he looks like a college professor with his glasses on. And Joel Collier was an excellent receiver when he was a player. But he coaches the defensive backs, and it lists the linebackers, and he's the coordinator. And we'll talk about strategy, but in a lot of ways, they're not as creative in '64 as they will be the next year in '65.
Okay, now let's go to San Diego. Their coaching staff, head coach Sid Gilman, Chuck Noll, and Tom Bass.
Well, we're going to add in there their offensive line coach. Now, one thing about coaching staffs in that era, doesn't happen quite as much today, but men that were loyal stuck with their main man all the way through. Joe Madrose, the offensive line coach, he was superb.
Yeah.
And he started with Sid Gilman in '55 with the Rams.
Yep.
And he ends his career with the Raiders, and he was superb with them. Tom Bass is listed. It's his first year, and he coaches the offensive backs. Later on, he will coach other positions. It doesn't say much in the evaluation, but look at the talent he gets to work with. So It couldn't have been too bad.
Yep.
Walt Hackett coaches the D-line, and he joined the Chargers in '62 because that leaves the most talented man of that staff and truly one of the great coaches of all time in Chuck Noll.
Yep.
First he coached the D-line, and then in '62, when Jack Faulkner left, and it taught Chuck Noll so much, and left and went to Denver, Chuck takes over and coaches the defensive backs, and I'm pretty sure he worked with the linebackers also.
Yep. Okay. And what about Sid Gilman?
Well, his place historically is amazing.
Yeah.
Because he just has his own iconoclastic view of offense. And he was outspoken. He said, you don't set up the pass by running the ball. You throw the pass to set up the run. But while he said that, and while he had success everywhere he was at, he really believed in a balanced offense, like so many other excellent coaches.
Yeah.
And he sure had. He's got Paul Lowe and Keith Lincoln, so you might want to run the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
But having the premier player in the league, who is, in essence, going into his second full year, who has already proven to be the best receiver in the AFL and probably the best player in the league in Lance Allworth, they're going to throw, they're going to run. And at the quarterback position, though John Hadle plays, it's basically he's still learning on the job after being a running quarterback at Kansas.
Yeah.
Tobin Rote is in his, he thought it was going to be his last year. He will actually resurface later with Denver for a cup of coffee. But basically, this is Tobin Rote's last year, and when he's healthy, he's on the field.
Okay, let's talk about Buffalo's offensive backfield of Jack Kemp, Cookie Gilchrist, and Bobby Smith.
Well, Bobby Smith does not contribute a whole lot, though I watched the film today of his performance against the Jets in October, where he had the game of his life, and they needed it. Bobby Smith, I won't say he's blazing fast, but he was obviously a lot faster than their other backs. They've lost so many running backs to injury that they're basically, everybody thinks, well, they're just going to run between the tackles. But when you watch film, that's not really true. Cookie Gilchrist is Cookie Gilchrist. Now I'll go back to the quote from one of the magazines. It says, Gilchrist seems to be as big a problem to management as to the players that try and tackle him. And, of course, and I'm sure we'll address it during our conversation.
Yeah.
How he was actually attempted to be put on waivers during the middle of the season.
Jeez,
and obviously Buffalo would have not won the title without him, but that will go to the brains behind the operation, Mr. Jack Kemp.
Yeah.
Who I was very fortunate to spend just a little snippet of time with at a Super Bowl. What a class act. What an amazing guy.
Yeah.
So Gilchrist does run between the tackles, but he runs off tackle, and when he sees his chance, he can bounce it outside, and he has better than average speed, and he also catches the ball well.
Yeah.
Now, he's an excellent blocker when he's asked, but a lot of times you see him releasing on pass patterns on downs because he's a good receiver. Ray Carlton, when healthy, is probably one of the most underrated backs in AFL history. The guy was a tremendous blocker. He was okay as a receiver. No problems there. But you talk about a guy who could get you, if it's 3rd and 2, he's going to get you 3 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was just money. But he has virtually no speed.
Yeah.
So defenses can set themselves to what they believe, we're going to stop them inside. But as our conversation goes on, we'll discuss Mr. Kemp and strategy.
Okay, now the Buffalo has a reserve quarterback by the name of Darryl LaMonica. How did Buffalo platoon LaMonica with Kemp during the regular season and all that? What were the situations where they would insert the Mad Bomber and Mr. LaMonica, and in game situations?
When I watched him on film today, and I don't ever remember him doing this as a Raider, early in his career, he ran very well. And watching him on film, I mean, he's a willing runner. I mean, he's not super fast, but he's sure not slow. He is learning. I mean, you can imagine going from Notre Dame and their type of offense to the pros. But there is no way that he is going to sit the whole time. What is amazing, when you watch it on film, you have two men, in Jack Kemp and Darryl LaMonica. They could probably both stand in the opposite end zones and throw the ball to each other the length of the field. I mean, they have howitzers.
Yeah.
And there's games you see LaMonica come in and he knows to go deep. It's the play calling, and he can make those throws. And we'll talk about that with the receivers, but Jack Kemp has a history. I mean, he can throw the slant, but boy, can he throw the deep ball.
Yeah. Thing was,
so LaMonica gets plenty of playing time. He's just not polished. He doesn't have the savvy or the expertise yet that Jack Kemp does. But Saban is never going to let this kid sit the whole season.
Yeah.
So he plays a decent amount.
Yeah. When you look at Jack Kemp's stats, they're not exactly devastating and overwhelming stats in that sense. So would it accurate to say, to use a basketball terminology, LaMonica was like a sixth man coming in and providing instant energy on the offense? Would that be an accurate metaphor?
Excellent, Matthew. Excellent as always. Yes. And if Kemp threw an interception and Mr. Saban wanted to make a change, in comes LaMonica. Not that LaMonica didn't throw an interception too, but because Buffalo throws deep so often, how many of those are you going to complete? So when you look at Kemp's percentage of completions, while it's down a little bit compared to other passers, look at the average yards per catch by their receivers.
Yeah.
So you can't always gauge everything by completion percentage, because they scare the hell out of every defense because they throw deep.
Yeah. And here's another thing about Jack Kemp, not to disparage him. One thing Jack Kemp had in spades: leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased.
Yeah.
He's one of my guys. Look at what he endured in his time. I mean, Pittsburgh, Detroit, and the New York Football Giants.
Yep.
And he's there for a cup of coffee or on the practice squad. And after he left the Chargers and goes to Buffalo, he loved it there.
Yeah.
There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And it's not that they really boo him other than they're frustrated when he throws incompletions, when he throws deep and it's incomplete. But the guy can make those throws. The other aspect is when they are down near the goal line, what we call the red zone, Jack Kemp was one of the best rollout quarterbacks, always to the right, always to the right. And he could throw, and he does down there, but he really was an excellent. Look at his touchdowns that he scored in his career. He was excellent about lowering his shoulder for not being a big guy and burrowing into the end zone.
Yeah. Okay.
And LaMonica rolls out also, not quite as much, but I have film of him rolling out.
Yep. Okay. Now let's go to the Bills receiving corps. Elbert Dubenion, Glenn Bass, and Ernie Warlick.
Well, Ernie Warlick is there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to block.
Yep.
By far the best blocking tight end then in the AFL. Fred Arbanis will join him, and they are by far the two best blocking tight ends.
Yep.
And Ernie Warlick catches the ball okay, and he has excellent speed, and he makes some long catches. He's just not the main part of the passing attack.
Yeah.
When I'm reading in those publications, it lists Glenn Bass as a back, and it doesn't even talk about him. And look at the numbers he put up there in 64. First off,
yeah,
I don't think the defensive backs, because they don't know him, realize how blazing fast he was.
Yep.
And he makes one of the key plays. When he catches that slant from Kemp, Kemp reads it and just, whistles the ball. And Bass sprints through that defense. It took Westmoreland, who was blazing fast, all he had in the tank to catch Bass and tackle him on the one.
Yeah.
It's one of the key plays of the game. Now, Dubenion is classic.
Yeah.
Good old golden wheels. He still does not catch the ball well, but he is so much improved from early in his career. And he can go to, why would LaMonica and Kemp not want to throw deep when you're throwing to a guy with the nickname of golden wheels? Look at, he had over 800, he was like Allworth, he had over 800 yards receiving at the halfway mark of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Buffalo's kickers. A very good kicking squad. Pete Gogolak and Paul McGuire.
I'm sure that every time the fans saw Gogolak line up, especially the teams in other cities that have never seen a soccer-style kicker, they're looking at him going, what is this? And obviously, he is a breath of fresh air. Buffalo had tried, I won't say a lot of kickers, but they're not Gogolak.
Yeah.
He is the guy. And Paul McGuire doesn't play much linebacker in 64, and he doesn't have a great punting average all the time, but he's more than capable. But the one thing about him, and he does it in this game, he can punt for the coffin corner, and he drops one that, goes out. Oh, gosh, he was very, very good at placement punting.
Yeah. Here's another thing, if I recall correctly, McGuire wasn't just good on the field, also in the locker room. He was a real good presence, inspirational. He brought postseason experience to the Bills, brought maturity and character into the locker room. Is that correct?
Yes, and the other part, everybody likes him, and you saw this on his broadcast. He had a terrific sense of humor. He kept things light, upbeat in the locker room.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about the Buffalo special teams, kick and punt returners, and the suicide squads.
Well, their main guy, and all Buffalo fans love him because he tried to do a little bit of everything. Ed Rutkowski, I think, there's the guy who probably did drive the T-bus. He played receiver, he played DB, he ran back kicks. He's a tough guy. He even took snaps under center later in his career. But he returned some of the kicks. But there's a rookie from Florida named Haygood Clark.
Yeah.
And in all the publications, as they said, can't miss prospect. And it's not that he has blazing speed or great moves, but he's one of those return men. He gets the ball with a full head of steam, and he knows how to weave his way through traffic. So the Buffalo return men, they're good.
Okay. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills offensive line, the O-line.
Boy, when I get to this, I'm going to save center for last because it's fascinating when I get to him. Stu Barber is all-league at left tackle.
Yep.
Billy Shaw is unanimous All-Pro in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Deserve it. Excellent pass blocker, good at the trap. I've seen film of him doing a drive block where he pancakes 250-pound men flat on their back.
Yep.
Yeah, so he is superb.
Yeah.
O'Donnell, the right guard, is rock solid, and the unsung hero of the O-line is Dick Hudson.
Yep.
Now, he's not polished yet, but when we talk a little bit later on the Chargers' defensive line, Dick Hudson faces the toughest task for any Buffalo Bill in that title game.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
Now, the center.
Yeah.
The center, Walt Kudzik. I have a film from opening day 1954. One of the worst defenses in pro football history, the 1954 Redskins,
Ouch.
are overwhelmed in Kezar by the 49ers. Starting at right outside linebacker as a rookie, outside linebacker is Walt Kudzik. He moves well, he runs well, he can make a tackle. They assigned him in his first game. He must stop Hugh McElhenney on sweeps and Joe the Jet Perry on pass patterns.
Wow.
Yeah, they cut him after one game.
Jeez.
And he resurfaces in the AFL in 1960. And he is the starting center for Buffalo and excellent. And one of his teammates on that 54 Redskin team is the left defensive tackle is Dick Modzelewski.
Wow.
So isn't it fascinating that Modzelewski and Kudzik are teammates on this horrible Redskin team in 54, and now it's 1964, and they're both going to be champions.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Do we call that patience?
Yes.
Or believing in yourself?
Yeah. And a little bit of divine justice, too.
Boy, I'd throw that right in there, Matthew.
Yeah.
And Kudzik, technique-wise, amazing.
Yeah.
Good drive blocker, very polished, excellent feet. I rarely saw him have a bad play.
Yep. Yep. Okay, let's go to the Buffalo, the real strength, the Buffalo defense. Let's talk without that. The front four: Ron McDowell, Jim Dunaway, Tom Sestak, and Tom Day.
Well, there's replacements. There's virtually nothing said about, or as they list him in the programs, Roland McDowell.
Ooh.
There's nothing said about being called the Dancing Bear.
Yeah.
There's nothing listed that he began his career in 1961
Yep.
as are you ready? An offensive lineman for the St. Louis Football Cardinals.
Jeez.
He's an Oiler for a little bit in 62 and actually plays well, and they let him go.
Jeez.
I think they just did not realize. And when you watch the Redskins play in the 70s, how many big plays did Ron McDowell make?
Yep.
For the Redskins, and it's the same for Buffalo.
Yeah.
Now, he's not a great pass rusher, but he is a load. He plays the run well. He pushes the pass pocket. He is a dramatic upgrade at left defensive end over the guys that played there before.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Now we've got Jim Dunaway. Huge. I mean, he is huge.
yeah.
He's not very polished yet, but man, with that size and with that strength, and when Buffalo shifts into gap defenses, they better bring their A game to stop him because he's so big.
Yeah.
The right defensive end is another guy. They list him as an outside linebacker. They don't know, and he does play that. No, there's no mention of Tom Day. He's another one who's listed at times as an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
It's amazing. These publications don't even list their name. And Tom Day is so versatile. He plays right defensive end very well. And then when Collier goes to his 3-4, he's the stand-up right outside linebacker.
Beautiful.
But that leaves my favorite Buffalo Bill of all time. So for all the listeners out there, please bear with me.
Yeah.
There'll never be another Buffalo Bill in my heart like Tom Sestak, and I never refer to him that way.
Yeah.
He is always, to me, known as what he was known as to his teammates. He's Big Sess.
Wow.
When he shows up out of McNeese State and they list him at 220 and he walks in and Saban looks at him, And he's an Air Force veteran. He's older as a rookie. He's got this incredible, deep, powerful voice and huge, broad shoulders. And he probably weighs about 240 then.
Jeez.
And Saban looks at him and goes, "You are not a tight end." And it takes him a little while in that first year in 62, but down the stretch, he has already shown that he's going to be outstanding. By 64, he is 270 pounds of raw stud.
Yep.
Unblockable. Without a doubt, the best defensive lineman in AFL history.
Wow. Okay. Getting back to Ron McDole for a moment, I'd like to give a shout out to a mutual friend of ours, Tammy McDole, who's the daughter of Ron McDole, and
yes.
we'd like to wish you a very happy holidays. We send our love out to you and to your father. May God bless and keep you always. And Tammy, may you succeed in your quest in getting your father inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Okay.
Well, as someone who, as the listeners probably know, I'm a huge George Allen guy.
Yeah.
And because I followed the Bills in that era, I saw Ron McDole play so many games and play well in so many games.
Yeah.
The challenge for him is there are so many outstanding defensive linemen that have been overlooked for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So it's a tough task, but he deserves every consideration.
Yeah. I think there's too much. Sometimes they overemphasize being a sack master, but hey, it's imperative to be a run defender too, and Ron McDole was a magnificent run defender, absolutely positively.
That, and the other part is he always knew where the ball was. When you look up the lifetime opponent fumble recoveries for the AFL, he's in the top 4.
Yeah.
When the ball was loose on the ground, the dancing bear, I'm surprised he didn't get up and do some kind of dance. But, McDole came up with the ball.
Yeah. What a ball hawk. Like Andy Robustelli with the New York Football Giants. What an incredible ball hawk. Yeah. Sam Mills in the USFL, he was an incredible ball hawk, both with the Stars and then later with the Saints. An incredible ball hawk.
There are men that just are instinctive and go to where the football is.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about the Bills linebackers, John Tracy, Harry Jacobs, and Mike Stratton, a key presence in this 1964 AFL Championship game. I just needless to say.
Well, here one publication, as I said, called the Buffalo linebacking suspect. John Tracy is a work in progress. This is a guy who was a receiver for the Chicago Cardinals.
Jeez.
Is traded to the Eagles, and they release him, basically, and he shows up in Buffalo. Well, he's 6'3", 225. He has excellent speed, excellent quickness, and he's tougher than 9 fields of Texas onions. The problem is he has no background playing outside linebacker. But when I watched him on film, he is without a doubt the most improved Buffalo defender from the beginning of the year to the end in 64. And later on, all these men that we're talking about, they're all going to receive some form of All-Pro.
Yeah.
And they got none in 64. It's Big Sess. If you're going to talk about a Buffalo Bill on defense, you talk about Big Sess. Well, what about the other 10 guys? Well, I don't know who those guys are.
Yeah.
Now, Harry Jacobs in the middle, he's just not sexy. Sorry, he's just not sexy. He's been released by teams. He doesn't have great strength or great size. He's in every hole, makes every tackle that he needs to, and he's superb on his pass drops.
Yep.
And he is so instinctive and smart, he quarterbacks the defense. He's Collier in the defensive huddle.
Yep.
Excellent middle linebacker.
Yeah.
And Stratton, well, I mean, he's got the size, he's got the speed, and as we're going to, and eventually he gets all-pro recognition, all AFL recognition sooner than those other guys.
Yep.
This is his coming out, or shall we call it, his coming out party in this game.
Oh, yes.
He was already on the road to success.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the secondary. Booker Edgerson, Butch Bird, Haygood Clark, and George Sames.
Well, Willie West, God bless him, he tried and he was on a number of teams from early through his career. He just didn't get the job done. So they've got to replace him. So they draft George Bird.
Yeah.
And they even talk about playing him on offense. Well, if he's not the AFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, I don't know who is.
Yeah.
I mean, he can play bump and run. He can play zone. He can play man. He's not asked to tackle a whole lot, but when he does have to tackle, he's not shy about contact. But the coverages, he is responsible for taking the wide receiver his side and basically going deep with them or whatever routes they run.
Yeah.
So there's times you just don't see him on film. So the other corner, Booker Edgerson, starts the season. Now, he lasts a long time in the AFL, and he actually is okay. But he is marginal. Maybe he had some injury problems in 64. Talk about making a trade. The Bills acquire absolutely blazing fast Charlie Warner in the middle of the season, and he's the starter down the stretch. And he makes an interception in the title game, and the week before against the Patriots when they had to win, he made a tremendous interception play.
Wow.
And speed, wow. I mean, I bet races on the practice field between Charlie Warner and Glenn Bass and Dubenion were pretty good. The Bills have speed. It's just nobody knows who they are yet.
Basically, they were a no-name defense before the famous no-name defense. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. Exactly. And Collier, you know what I mean, and his staff, they're going to teach these guys. It's not like they don't have ability.
Yeah.
It's just nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Now the safeties.
Yeah.
The left safety, they want it to be Haygood Clark, and he does play a lot. But you talk about a guy who's never mentioned, even though he's listed on the roster, and I watch him on film, Gene Sykes. Instinctive.
Yeah.
Athletic. Decent speed. He's an okay tackler. I saw him miss some tackles. But a couple of times, he's coming up to take on Matt Snell in the flat. And it's how quickly he arrived to do it in the game I watched against the Jets. So, and he's the strong safety in the championship. And he goes to where the tight end goes. They don't go left and right. They are strong, legitimately strong and free. Wherever the tight end goes, Sykes goes. And that leaves probably the smartest, I don't want to discount my buddy Johnny Robinson. George Sames was just so smart.
Yeah.
And he just gets better and better. A couple weeks before, the team records, I believe it's 11 sacks against Denver.
Jeez.
He had 4.
Wow.
I mean, this man can come on the safety blitz, and he can cover deep. He doesn't get a lot of interceptions, but I watch him and where they align him, and you know what I mean? The offense better know where George Sames is. His pursuit angles and tackling ability, outstanding. And, of course, he's all-decade in the AFL. So they have talent on this defense.
Yeah.
It's just the other teams, they're probably go, we don't even know. You called it, Matthew. This is no name before no name. But boy, oh boy, after 64 and 65, everybody's going to know who plays defense for Buffalo.
Yeah. Let's talk about X's and O's. I mean, when you're looking at the films of the Bills' defense, do they do a lot of shifting? Do they go from like a 4-3? Do they go to odd man lines? What about their blitz packages and their red dogs and their stunts and their coverages?
Well, they must have saw something against Denver and some of the other early games to send Sames as much as they did.
Yeah.
You don't see Stratton come on the blitz. Rarely do you see Jacobs or Tracy come on the blitz. They drop because they're also good at pass defense. And they've got a front 4, even though they don't record as many. I mean, it's not like they're going to get 60 sacks. But let me tell you, there is pressure. And Big Sess is amongst the league leaders. He might have led the AFL in 64. Plus, I'm going to go to it right away. Opening day, he has what I call the enchilada. He intercepts the screen pass because he reads the play and returns it for a touchdown. He recovers a fumble, and he had 2.5 sacks.
Wow.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
He is, but the other teams know who he is. So they're not as creative in 64 as they will be in the next 2 years, though it is in the package.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if Coach Collier wanted to do it, he could.
Yeah.
They will slide into gaps, but when it's long yardage, they go right to that 3-4.
Yeah.
And it's almost, and Big Sess goes to right defensive end. Dunaway lines up on the center, which I'm sure the center had headaches after the game, trying to block that massive body. And then there's the Dancing Bear at left end crashing from his side, and they put pressure on with 3 men. Now, sometimes they'll blitz a guy, but they just all dropped back and said, okay, throw the ball down the field. And other teams, they are not the number 1 team pass defensive team.
Ooh. But
you had to drive the ball the length of the field against Buffalo. And we know when you get down in the red zone, nobody ran the ball there.
Yeah.
So they are becoming. Collier knew their strengths and played them.
Yep. Okay, let's go to San Diego. Now, you already talked about Tobin Road and John Hadle. Let's talk about their dynamic duo of backs of Keith Lincoln and Paul Lowe.
Well, Paul Lowe doesn't have as good a year in 64 as he does in 63. But he's still Paul Lowe. When he's healthy, I mean, my gosh, can he run a sweep with that speed? So he is excellent. But in the title game, when the Chargers needed him the most, he carried the ball 7 times.
Ouch.
So I'm not sure he was completely healthy. Mr. Lincoln is all world in 64. Everybody knows he is, what do you say? I mean, after the 63 title game, he is a tremendous player.
Yeah.
And he is going to be the leader of the offense in the title game. I'm sure that Sid Gilman game planned that way.
Yeah.
Because he's missing his wide receiver. I think they call him Bambi.
Yeah.
So he needs Lincoln, and we know that Mr. Lincoln isn't going to be around very long in the title game.
Yeah.
And the rest of the backs for the Chargers, they're all okay. There's none of them that are going to have long careers. They're just, as Dr. Z used to say, they're just guys.
Yeah. Tell me something, Coach. Keith Lincoln was such a multi-purpose back. He not only could run, he could catch passes, he could even throw the option pass. Would it be accurate to say he played the role of Paul Hornig? He was Sid Gilman's Paul Hornig, what Hornig was to Vince Lombardi, the ultimate multi-purpose back?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, of course, they list Keith Lincoln at fullback, and, yes, he does line up there.
Yeah.
But it's Sid Gilman. They're in split backs. They're in backs left and right.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What's the term we use now? Running back.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Lowe and Lincoln are.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a law firm. But Keith Lincoln could have started for almost every NFL team.
Yeah.
He was so talented and gifted. And the other part, talk about a great teammate. Everybody loved the guy.
Yeah.
Some guys just can't stay away from injury.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the receiving corps now. You already waxed eloquent on Lance Allward. Let's talk about Don Norton and Dave Kukurik.
Well, Don Norton could run every route. He really had his moments, but by 64, he's already winding down. Runs the slant, can run over the middle, has okay speed. There's not anything Norton can't do. It's just, can he be the featured guy? And all of a sudden, because of how Buffalo plays, if Norton is running any type of inside route, I guarantee you George Sains was sliding over to help the corner.
Yeah.
Kukurik played he could be flexed out at tight end. He could be a wide receiver. He did that at different times. I mean, for his size, he had tremendous speed. And he scores the first touchdown, or I'll rephrase it, the only touchdown for the Chargers. Just a very, very talented receiver. The guy that they also have is like a bigger clone of Kukurik is Jacques McKinnon. And we're going to play McKinnon at fullback. Well, we need him at tight end. I mean, the Chargers have some backup talent there. But without Bambi, everything changes.
Yeah.
in how they strategize.
Okay. What about San Diego's kickers? I mean, looking at it, their kicking team seemed rather weak. Looking at their numbers and all that. I mean, is that true? Their kicking teams are not that good.
Well, it's Gogolak.
Yeah.
He's already in his rookie year. I mean, he's the guy. So yes, the Chargers kicking game cannot compare anything with Buffalo.
Yeah.
Now the return game, San Diego. My gosh. Warren is okay, but when your nickname is Speedy,
yeah.
I mean, I had a couple nicknames in my lifetime, but Speedy was not one of them. Leslie Duncan was just outstanding. Well, look how long his career was at returning punts and kickoffs.
Yeah.
And he was actually a rock-solid defensive back.
Yeah.
So the Chargers can sure hurt you in the return game.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the key men on the Chargers offensive line.
Well, you see publications, and they'll list guys at certain positions, and I'm watching film of the title game, and the left offensive guard for San Diego, almost the entire game, and you talk about a battle of talented men. It's Walt Sweeney against Tom Sestak.
Oh, yeah.
But Sweeney is, he's a youngster, so he has a ways to go. But there's a couple of plays he cut blocked Sess right off his feet. But the biggest situation for the Chargers, and though Ernie Wright's an excellent left tackle, is when Buffalo was in the 3-4. Ernie Wright gets to face Big Sess out there. So whoever faces Sestak is going to have a challenge.
Wow.
The other members of the offensive line, they're all, rock solid. San Diego can run the ball.
Yeah.
So, but there's not, and of course, when Mix is healthy, he is the best offensive lineman in the AFL. No one ever disputes that.
Yeah, great guy. Let's talk about the Chargers front four: Earl Faison, Henry Schmidt, Ernie Ladd, and Rob Petrick.
Well, Petrick is a pretty good player, but he's not there yet. You know what I mean? He's okay. And Henry Schmidt, oh gosh, does that guy play hard? Lord of mercy. But he's not much of a pass rusher. Ernie Ladd is Ernie Ladd.
Yeah.
You flip the coin. If you get the Buffalo, he plays hard today. If you get the Indian, no, we're going to take half the game off. And he is still susceptible to trap blocks and cut blocks because of his size, and he moves well, but his pursuit skills by this time, and they tried to trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, Sid tried to trade him, and he wanted to be traded. He thinks he's been, you know what I mean? Now, why am I not getting more notoriety? And it's not that Ernie Ladd isn't a talented player, but you can't compare him to some of the other defensive linemen that play hard every down.
Yeah.
Which will take me to the left defensive end.
Yeah.
There's a few other left defensive ends in the AFL that are quality. None of them can compare with Earl Faison.
Yeah.
If you, I'll give you the best comparison I can. If you send Earl Faison to Green Bay, and Willie Davis saw him on the practice field, as great as Willie Davis is, he would go, "Oh my gosh, I got to play better or I lose my job."
Yeah.
Earl Faison was destined for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But the injuries to his legs and his back curtailed a career. And that's why in this game, he plays okay in the championship. But if you wanted to give a special game ball to a Buffalo Bill, you give it to Dick Hudson. Because Dick Hudson, he gets no help. It's, okay, Dick, you get to block Earl Faison, unanimous first-team All-Pro, every damn play.
Yeah.
So Faison is legit.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to their linebackers: Ron Carpenter, Chuck Allen, and Frank Bunkum.
Well, Bunkum is very athletic, and he makes splash plays, and everybody liked him. Tragic what happens to him in his life. Ron Carpenter never becomes what they think he's going to be. I mean, he's just a guy. Chuck Allen is very similar to Jacobs in that he's savvy, instinctive, smart, and pursues well. And they're almost identically the same size.
Yeah.
Excellent pass defender. Good tackler. I wouldn't say he's great at stepping in on the inside run, but he doesn't hurt you there. A lot of the AFL middle linebackers in that era are one or the other. They're either pursuit guys or they're pluggers. They can, let's put it this way. They are not Ray Nitschke. They're not Dick Butkus.
Right. Okay.
In fact, they're not even Vince Costello. So,
yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Chargers secondary. Jimmy Warren, Dick Westmoreland, Kenny Graham, and Charlie McNeil.
Well, you list Charlie McNeil, and I sure wish I could talk about him more. There's another guy that if he doesn't have the knee injuries, and he keeps getting them every year.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he would have been a Hall of Famer, but he'd have probably fought George Sames and Johnny Robinson for all decade.
Wow.
He was that good. But he plays very little in 64 because of injury.
Yeah.
Kenny Graham, excellent. He's going to get be even better. Excellent, strong safety. Dick Westmoreland, blazing speed, got a lot of votes in 63 for Rookie of the Year, and rock solid corner. And 1964, and because I believe in it, the defensive passer rating, the Chargers led the league. 30 interceptions.
Wow.
Allowed 22 touchdowns. Yeah, and they tackled well.
Yeah.
They were number one. Buffalo was third. They were improved to be third.
Yeah.
But the Chargers were first. So Westmoreland is better than Jimmy Warren, but Jimmy Warren is good.
Yeah.
But the key guy here is, because he could play both corner and safety, he could tackle, he could cover, he's not the fastest guy, is Bud Whitehead. I don't know what the Chargers would have done if they did not have Bud Whitehead in 64.
Wow. Okay. You know, it's an interesting story. When I was researching my book, Lords of the Gridiron 2, Pro Football's Greatest Coaches, and I was researching my Chuck Noll chapter, of course, Noll was famous for being so cool and unemotional as a head coach of the Steelers, but you know, Noll really helped Dick Westmoreland's development as a player. I mean, Westmoreland, I read a book where Westmoreland said Noll was always absolutely inspirational, always pepping him up. So basically the total opposite of what he was as a head coach. He was actually, very, just getting Westmoreland to believe in himself, giving him pep talks, building up his confidence. So it's interesting to see that different aspect of Chuck Noll as an assistant coach and all that. Yeah.
Well, and Westmoreland, I mean, the Chargers let him go to Miami.
Yeah.
And what does he do? He leads the league. He ties for the lead interception. Dick Westmoreland. When the ball was in flight, if Westmoreland saw it in flight, he goes, well, God gave me the gift of being able to run fast. I think I'll run to this football and intercept it.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's some guys that just lack confidence at some point in their career, for whatever reason. So your point is very well taken. Chuck Noll, as an assistant, was very different than Chuck Noll as a head coach.
Yeah.
The one thing that is similar is he knew the game and knew how to teach it.
Yeah. Okay. Its game is on now. Okay, the 1964 AFL Championship game is on. When you look at the films, Coach, what are you seeing at the start of the game there? I mean, how are both teams playing? What is San Diego trying to do on offense? What are Buffalo's defenses like? And then reverse it. What's Buffalo's offense like? And what was San Diego defense trying to do? Take it, Coach.
Well, San Diego, when they get the ball, the worst possible thing that could happen is they went right down the field and scored.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It looks like the replay is 63. Well, we're going to put up 50 and put an end to this nonsense that the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFL.
Yeah.
They give the ball to Keith Lincoln. One publication listed as a draw. It's more of a delay handoff. He gets excellent blocking. And Keith Lincoln explodes for 38 yards.
Wow.
They're right down there deep in Buffalo territory. And Kasurik, I have a hard time really reading the route. It kind of looks like it starts as a slant, but then he looks like maybe it was a slant and go. And it was hard for me to try and figure out who was responsible for him other than the green grass that was in the end zone. Because Rope puts the ball right on the money. Kasurik makes the catch. In fact, he runs into that end rope at the back of in War Memorial there.
Yeah.
So they're ahead 7-0. It looked like, I believe Charlie Warner was the nearest guy, but I'm not sure. So the Chargers go right down and score. It's 7-0. Well, how many points are they going to score after this? This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. Who would have thought?
Yeah. What were the field conditions like? I mean, was it the field really torn up, or I mean, was it a bad weather day? I mean, was it like Cleveland where the wind was it like a wind tunnel? What were the field conditions on that day, Coach?
Well, the palm trees are swaying. It's about 70 degrees. Oh, that would be another city.
Yeah.
We're in Buffalo, New York.
Yep.
So watching the film, and they show the warm-ups before, it shows the guys out there with the sand, tossing it on the edges of the field.
Yeah.
It's about 18 to 20 degrees.
Yeah.
It's going to get muddy. But I don't think the Buffalo fans cared. They're a hardy lot.
Yep.
They just want to play. I mean, my gosh, we got to make up for the debacle of the year before against the Patriots.
Yeah.
And how motivated can you be? You're playing the defending AFL champions that put up 50 the year before.
Okay.
So they're Buffalo is motivated, the crowd is motivated, but War Memorial, the only thing missing would have been seeing a right fielder wearing jersey number 9 jog out on the field and say, well, I'm Roy Hobbs, because they're playing the War Memorial, which is, of course, where they film The Natural.
Yeah.
So this is not the most picturesque stadium in the AFL, but boy, you talk to Buffalo fans, they loved it.
Yeah. I know one opposing player, I think an old Kansas City Chief said, when you went to the baseball portion of the field, he said that was always tricky, the footing there. He said that was always a bit of a problem for opposing teams when they went to War Memorial Stadium. Footing, dealing with the baseball diamond there.
Absolutely. That's a great point again, Matthew. It almost looks like they're on skates. You'll see their cleats and they're skidding on it.
Now, Coach, after Kasurik scored that touchdown, did you when you look at the films, do you detect any type of adjustments on the Bills' defense to prevent any further scoring? Did you see any type of changes or alterations in coverages or formations, anything of that nature?
Well, the one thing I'm going to surmise this because, of course, the camera doesn't always show the free safety.
Yeah.
I think that Collier and Sames talked and said, you got to stay more towards center field. And then they wanted the corners to play as tight as they could. And, of course, Butch Bird and Charlie Warner both have good speed. And Butch Bird can do the bump and run, and they can drop. So they're hiding and disguising coverages. It's just, we can't give up another deep ball. We cannot let them have one of these.
Okay.
And San Diego doesn't really control the game. I mean, he throws, but he struggles.
Yeah.
Meaning Tobin Rote. And they take him out, and his shoulder was bothering him. And shall we address the interception? He claims that he was trying to throw the ball away. Boy, for a guy who has such a strong arm, the throw is not that great. And Mike Stratton, he runs to the sideline and keeps his toes, and he looks like a receiver reaching up and plucking the ball out of the sky.
Wow.
And he's 20 yards down the field. Okay. So he makes it, we'll talk about it, of course, the big hit. But that interception, just before that, it was a huge play.
Yeah. Okay.
So they are not, they meaning the Chargers, they're just not the Chargers we expect to see offensively. They lack the firepower.
Okay. Now, speaking of the devil, the most immortal play in that game is the great hit Mike Stratton delivered on Keith Lincoln. When did that take place? What stage of the game? Was it early in the game? In which quarter was that immortal hit?
Yeah, it's early in the game. Lincoln has already had the great draw play run. I think he carried the ball one or two other times. He has not carried the ball a whole lot. But the bottom line is that he drops into coverage. He's a Buffalo linebacker.
Yeah.
They're in there 3-4. So all four linebackers are going to drop back. Here I'm looking it up. Lincoln carried the ball 3 times for 47 yards.
Yeah.
And 1 catch for 11 yards.
Yeah.
So, but this is the second one. So Stratton, you don't even see him on film. When you see Rote drop back and he throws the ball, and you see Big Sess raise his big old hand up in the air, and the ball goes over it, so there's a loop that gives Stratton a little bit of time. So he plants his cleats, and all of a sudden you see this big old rangy 58 come running onto the screen. The ball arrives, and Mr. Stratton arrives, and Mr. Lincoln is not. I mean, they said it was crack.
Yeah.
Like a bat hitting a baseball, and his ribs are busted. Now, God bless Lincoln. He was on the sidelines later in the game politicking. He said, if you really need me, I can go back in. I don't think so, Keith, but God bless you for thinking that.
Yeah.
He's got his sideline jacket on. I mean, it really was the hit. And you can hear the crowd erupt when he does it.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the rest of the Buffalo defenders in the huddle after that play. This is our day.
Yeah. I mean, so it's not just a physical blow to the San Diego Chargers. It was also a psychic blow, too. Quite accurate to say?
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have Allworth. You don't have Lincoln. I'm not sure Paul Lowe is completely healthy.
Yeah.
Tobin Rote's shoulder is bothering him.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
yeah.
You know, this is not the 63 Chargers in this game.
Yeah.
But even if they'd had all hands on deck, I still believe Buffalo would have found a way to win because they were so good defensively.
Yep.
It just would have been a lot closer game.
Okay, let's go to Buffalo offense. When you look at the films, what are you seeing on offense? What type of play, what type of ground game is Cookie Gilchrist doing? I mean, is he going inside or outside? What side of the San Diego defense is he targeting?
Well, he goes both sides, though he has more good plays to the right. I mean, what a day. 16 carries for 122 yards.
Yeah. And
he has a 39-yarder, and I know he has another long one in the game. They can do fullback, a la number 32 in Cleveland. They can do toss sweep to the fullback, or if we want to list Gilchrist as a running back. And Ray Carlton, he carries the ball more. He carries it 18 times and gains 70 yards.
Wow.
And, of course, a lot of those are between the tackles.
Yeah.
So they are just hammering away. Kemp throws 20 times. He completes 10, but the 10 completions are for 188 yards.
Yeah.
You know, he has a 26-yarder to DeBenion. He has a 26-yarder to Warlick, and then he has the 51-yarder to Glenn Bass. So, as always, it's not that Buffalo throws, it completes a lot of long ones, but they get enough of them in the game. There's 103 yards right there.
Okay.
So Buffalo's offense is Buffalo's offense. We're going to run the Cookie Man, and then we're going to throw, and we're going to make just enough plays that we're going to limit you.
Another thing about Gilchrist was he was such an enormous back. I mean, he was actually built like a linebacker. In fact, when they used to play both ways, he was a linebacker on defense. So he was physical size. I think he was like 230, 240. So when he got in the open field, it was like trying to tackle a tank, right?
Yes. His body type is a little different than Jim Brown. Jim Brown is so sculpted.
Yeah.
But Cookie probably outweighs him by about 8 to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
I'll say 235 to 240.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Maybe after a big meal, he's 245.
Yeah.
But again, Gilchrist moves well, and he bounces his plays outside. This is not one of those. He does not run like Mike Allstott, where you hand him the ball and he just hammers straight ahead. This is somebody who has decent wheels and can bounce it outside.
Okay. Now, getting back to Buffalo's passing plays, I thought I remember reading somewhere they wanted. Tell me if you detected this. They wanted to keep the San Diego middle linebacker occupied. They did I don't know, with patterns or something like that, either to set up the outside routes or something like that. What did you see in that thing? Did they do something special, with regards to freezing the San Diego's linebackers? What did you see with the films?
Well, Chuck Allen is, again, such an excellent pass defender. He's just going to drop into his zone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Warlick, when he's releasing, he probably ran his routes.
Yeah.
And Gilchrist, I mean, when Buffalo threw, they threw down the field. So in essence, Chuck Allen is not really a factor because he's not going to have a lot of throws in his area. He's assigned his own area to cover. They're just not going to attack there. They are going to attack. It's amazing. They are going to attack Westmoreland and Jimmy Warren because Bass and Dominion are so fast. You talk about raw speed in all four men.
Okay. What was their most effective patterns? Was it mostly post patterns, or were they going inside?
No, they're just flat. They can throw those, but it's basically just deep fades or deep streaks.
Okay.
They're just going to throw. Now, it's not that those guys don't run an occasional out pattern or a curl pattern, but that's not Jack Kemp. That's not what they're designed to do. Okay. We want to get you deep.
Okay. In your opinion, who was the Bills' defensive MVP in the championship game?
Well, it has to be Stratton.
Yep.
It has to be. The adulation he gets, and it's well-deserved, but what Buffalo defensive player didn't play well?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Charlie Warner and Gene Sykes out there. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
What team would want to attack those two? But they held up pretty well.
Yeah.
So they were okay. Sames has a solid game. Butch Bird has a solid game.
Yep.
And all the front seven, they all play well. Sestak played, but the one guy, it's Mike Stratton's game.
Yeah, yeah. But you could also say it was team. It was absolute team, correct?
It's team. Well, that's what Collier preached.
Yeah.
In Buffalo, and later when he is the D coordinator for the Orange Crush with Denver, no team swarmed the ball.
Yeah.
You've seen footage of the Denver defense, all of them sprinting to the ball and helping tackle.
Yep. Okay, who, in your opinion, who was the Bills' offensive MVP?
Well, how can you not give it to Gilchrist just based on the numbers?
Yep.
Because there's not, even though Billy Shaw plays well, the whole offensive line does their job. I think the one guy that you could give a game ball to would be Dick Hudson because he faces Earl Faison. And Jack Kemp, you look at the numbers, 10 out of 20? That's not great.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, the leadership, he ran 5 times. Kemp is Kemp.
Yeah.
He's going to do what he does. But when he's got to make the long throw and the slant to Bass, when he reads the coverage, the ball comes out of his hand in an instant and hits Bass, and Bass sprints right through the linebackers, and away he goes. And then, like I said earlier, you see Westmoreland put it into overdrive to run him down.
Yeah. Coach, here's an interesting thing about the Buffalo Bills. In the early years of the AFL, it was always offense, and Bills were a rare team. This was an AFL team that actually lived on its defense. Would you think it's accurate to say that this 64 AFL Championship game, what you're seeing now is overall the AFL's defenses are catching up with its offenses, and now you're seeing greater defensive strength because the Kansas City Chiefs, in 66 and 69 showed great defensive strength. The Oakland Raiders, in the late 60s, they're showing great defensive strength. Are you seeing a transition now that basically the collective AFL defenses are catching up with its offenses, and there is a transition here, and this game is like a transition game here in terms of strategy and tactics?
Absolutely. Coaches are, and I'm one. Coaches are thieves.
Yeah.
If you see something that somebody else is doing well, you go, well, can we do that? So all of a sudden, and the Chiefs, Hank Stram's innovative, they start doing it. They go to odd man lines.
Yeah.
And trying it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if Buffalo's doing it, can we do it? Do we have the manpower? Do we have the guys who can play those positions? And, of course, Mr. Davis with Oakland, no matter who's listed as the coach, he knew when he got the job, the first thing I got to do is address the defensive line.
Yeah.
So by 67, what are the Raiders know? 11 angry men?
Yeah.
And they recorded, whatever it is, 200,000 sacks that year? No, I think it's 60-some.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you see other teams going, well, maybe we could win on defense. And there were other teams in the AFL that had decent defensive years, but the Buffalo Bills set the template. You cannot score on us on the ground. We won't let you. They set the record, of course. You're not going to have a 100-yard rusher for two reasons. Number one, you don't have a back tough enough, resilient enough, fast enough, who can last 4 quarters against us. And the other thing is, your quarterback's going to start throwing because you can't run the ball.
Yeah.
So if they did it, other teams are going to do it.
Yeah. I think another innovation with the AFL was the concept of the true gigantic sized linemen, both offensive and defensive linemen. We talked about Ernie Ladd, 6'9", 290 pounds, but he was one of the prototypes. You also got Buck Buchanan, 6'9", 290 pounds. Earl Faison. I mean, you're getting the concept, just the truly gigantic that we take for granted today. The monster defensive lineman, the monster offensive lineman. You had later on with the Raiders, they got Shell and Upshaw because they had to have a monster offensive lineman just to defend against these gigantic guys. So you're seeing the emphasis on both size and speed combined with these giant men. I mean, do you agree?
Yes, and there's a handful of those defensive.
Yeah.
Dr. Z and me used to talk about some of those AFL defensive linemen, and it was not just their size, but how fast and strong and quick.
Yeah.
Tombstone Jackson.
Yeah.
The guy who never gets talked about for the Raiders, Ike Lassiter. That guy was outstanding.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not that he's great, though he's a very good player, but he's the guy everybody loved to hate. When the Raiders took the field, who do you see first? There's Ben Davidson.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. There were a number of teams that had big, and I don't want to discount the Boston Patriots. Man, they had good defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And they all had good size.
Yeah. Okay. Coach, I want to thank you so much for appearing on the show. It's a great way to end my 5th season, and our next episode will be on Tuesday, January 7th, and Coach Troup and I are going to discuss the mythical Super Bowl E between the 1964 Cleveland Browns and the 1964 Buffalo Bills, and we're really going to have a lot of fun with that mythical matchup, aren't we, Coach?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the battle for Lake Erie, and we have Gilchrist and Brown in the same stadium.
Beautiful, and I can hardly wait. So, Coach, I want to wish...
I'll add in real quickly, as for brains and quarterbacks, we have Jack Kemp and Frank Ryan.
Yep.
I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. Coach, I want to wish you and your family a very happy and safe New Year.
Right back at you, Matthew.
You take care. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.